1. Crimes are frequently classified as either malum in se inherently evil or malum prohibitum criminal because they have been declared as so by a legislature. The former is exemplified by murder. The failure to file a tax return is an example of the latter. Although some jurisdictions still distinguish between crimes of malum in se and crimes of malum prohibitum, others do not. A. Some jurisdictions still distinguish between crimes malum in se and malum prohibitum. B. Many jurisdictions no longer distinguish between crimes malum in se and malum prohibitum. C. Sometimes failing to file a tax return is characterized as malum in sed. Some crimes characterized as malum in se are not inherently evil. Two, a trucking company can act as a common carrier for contract to the common open at distributed rates. As a common carrier, it is obligated for any cargo damage, unless the company can show that it was not negligent. On the off chance that the company can illustrate that it was not negligent, at that point it is not liable for cargo damage. In contrast, a contract carrier is as it were dependable for cargo damage as spelled out within the contract. A clause-ing tractor-trailer, acting beneath common carrier specialist, was in a 5-vehicle accident that damages its cargo. A Nichols-ing tractor-trailer, acting under contract carrier authority, was included within the same accident and its cargo were also damaged. A. If Nichols Inc. can show that it is not negligent, then it is not liable. B. If Claus Inc. is liable, then it can show that it was not negligent. C. If Claus Inc. cannot show that it was not negligent, then it is not liable. D. If Claus Inc. can show that it was not negligent, then it is negligent. Three, a quickly changing technical environment is advancing greater dependence on electronic mail systems. As this utilization develops, there's expanding conflict between the users' desires of security and public access rights. In a few examinations, get to all mail, counting those messages put away in authentic records and messages exterior the scope of the examination, has been looked for and allowed. In show disdain toward this, a few people send messages through email that would never be said face-to-face or written formally. A. Some messages that people would never say face-to-face are sent in email messages. B. Some email messages contain information that would be omitted from formal writing. C. Some email messages that have been requested as part of investigations have contained messages that would never be said face-to-face. D. Email messages have not been exempted from investigations. Four, Phyllis T. could be a former government representative who was entitled to benefits beneath the Government Employee Compensation Act since of job-related, impairing harm. When an eligible government employee has such harm, the advantage is decided by this test. In case the recipient is hitched or has dependents, benefits are 3/4 of the people's compensation at the time of the harm. Something else, benefits are set at 2/3 of the compensation. Phyllis T.'s benefits were 2/3 of her compensation when she was injured. A. Was not married and had no dependents. B. Was married but without dependents. C. Was not married but had dependents. D. Was not married but had dependents. 5. A few 480,000 immigrants were living in a certain nation in 1999. In spite of the fact that most of these immigrants were not utilized in proficient occupations, numerous of them were. For instance, numerous of them were engineers, and numerous of them were nurses. Exceptionally few of these workers were curators, another professional occupation. A. It is not the case that some of the nurses were immigrants. B. None of the engineers were immigrants. C. Most immigrants were either engineers or nurses. D. Some of these engineers were immigrants. Six. Green cards authorize aliens to work in the United States. The cards have a 10-year expiration period. Application for a renewal of a green card can be made up to 6 months in advance of expiration. To apply for renewal of a green card, the applicant is required to apply in person and bring his or her current green card, application fee, and new photos. It may take 1 year for applicants to receive new green cards, but temporary documents are provided. It cannot be validly concluded from the above information that A. Green cards are the only work authorization documents that expires after 10 years. B. It is not the case that some green cards never expire. C. An application that does not require the applicant to apply in person cannot be renewal application for a green card. D. Some renewed green cards are not available in less than 1 year. Seven. Recently, officers received leads from informants about possible illegal activity at La Rosita Park. When officers arrived at the park, they drove through the parking lots, looking for individual and vehicles matching their leads. The officers examined several suspicious vehicles, including many unregistered vehicles. All of the unregistered vehicles contained bundles of marijuana. No arrests have been made in connection with this incident. It cannot be validly concluded from the above information that A. Some of the vehicles that did not contain bundles of marijuana were unregistered. B. Several arrests have been made in connection with this incident. C. Some of the vehicles that contained bundles of marijuana were unregistered. D. All of the vehicles that did not contain bundles of marijuana were unregistered. Eight. The alphanumeric coding of a fingerprint may be an efficient depiction of the print. Within a certain metropolitan area, 90% of the populace have fingerprints that can be alphanumerically coded. A. Can be alphanumerically coded, with a probability of less than 90%. B. Cannot be alphanumerically coded, with probability of 10%. C. Can be alphanumerically coded, with a probability of 10%. D. May be coded alphanumerically, but the probability is unknown. Nine. 25% of the nation's approaching cargo holders are dispatched to the harbor of Cary, and 10% are transported to the harbor of Davidson. Merchandise that arrives at these ports in containers is dispatched by truck and rail to its last destination within the United States. Cary is one of the greatest targets for cargo thieves due to the huge volume of merchandise dispatched there. A. There is 75% chance that the container was shipped to the port of Davidson. B. There is a 75% chance that the container was not shipped to the port of Cary. C. There is 90% chance that the container was shipped to the port of Cary. D. There is 25% chance that the container was shipped to the port of Davidson. 10. In spite of the reality that HIV isn't effortlessly transmitted, its dangerous potential requires that law enforcement officers ensure themselves from getting to be tainted by it. At the Callan precinct, officers utilize as were disposable items for collecting proof at whatever point blood is shown. Whereas examining a specific wrongdoing scene where blood was present, Detective R.C. of the Callan precinct utilized as it were disposable things for collecting evidence. Some officers at the Callan precinct do not use disposable items exclusively whenever blood is present. B. Detective R.C. does not always use disposable items when blood is present. C. Whenever blood is not present, Detective R.C. does not use disposable items. D. No officers at the Callan precinct do not use disposable items whenever blood is present. (11) The staff at the Law Enforcement Training Academy spends $32 on badges for all of the academy's graduates. The most recent class of officers graduated with 25 new officers. What is the total amount of money that the academy personnel will spend on badges for these new officers, assuming that the badge's seller offers a 20% discount on each badge? A. $790. B. $16. C. $800. D. $640. 12. A container inspected by an officer had a gross weight of 108 pounds of items in it. The officer was required by policy to convert this weight into kilograms if the conversion formula is 1.8 pounds per kilogram. What was the gross weight of the container load in kilograms, rounded to the closest tenth? A. 166.6. B. 194.0. C. 45.0. D. 60.0. 13. In a large mail container, an agriculture specialist and her dog discovered 1,500 items wrapped in plain brown paper. The officer discovered that some of the packages had valid CBP stickers while others had illegal stickers from another country when they were inspected. The ratio of legal to illegal stickers was 2 to 3. How many packages have illegal stickers? A. 900. B. 1,000. C. 500. D. 600. 14. Supervisor John understands how important it is for his CBP agriculture specialist to understand each of the fundamental principles that apply to all dog training methods. A. Change each to each and every one. B. Change knows that to know which. C. No correction is necessary. D. Change principle to principles. 15. It is important to include all dates, times, names, and quotes associated with the case in a report on a drug smuggling incident for future reference. A. No correction is necessary. B. Change on to round. C. Change incident to incident. D. Change from to with. 16. Recently, officers received leads from informants about possible illegal activity at La Rosita Park. When officers arrived at the park, they drove through the parking lots, looking for individuals and vehicles matching their leads. The officers examined several suspicious vehicles, including many unregistered vehicles. All of the unregistered vehicles contained bundles of marijuana. No arrests have been made in connection with this incident. It cannot be validly concluded from the above information that A. Some of the vehicles that did not contain bundles of marijuana were unregistered. B. Several arrests have been made in connection with this incident. C. Some of the vehicles that contained bundles of marijuana were unregistered. D. All of the vehicles that contained bundles of marijuana were unregistered. (17) Officer Davin is in charge of his sector's canine teams. In his sector, 15 canine teams are stationed. The majority of the canine teams are stationed along the border. Several canine teams are stationed in large urban areas far from the border. All teams must be available to travel to any duty station in the sector. A. Only teams located along the border must be available to travel to any duty station within the sector. B. Most of the canine teams are located away from the border large urban areas. C. Few of the canine teams are located at stations along the border. D. None of the teams are exempt from traveling to any duty location within the sector. (18) The Chief of Police tries to offer excellent service to the community while maximizing the use of resources. As a result, when allocating resources, the chief must consider various aspects. When a holiday weekend occurs, for example, additional staff are assigned to duty. However, if additional personnel are assigned to duty, they need special funding from the City Council. A. If special funding is not needed from the City Council, then it is not a holiday weekend. B. If it is a holiday, the special funding is not needed from the City Council. C. If it is a holiday weekend, the special funding is needed from the City Council. D. If special funding is not needed from the City Council, then it is a holiday weekend. (19) When an illegal alien is being removed, the alien's passport in U.S. government possession is returned to the issuing government, not to the illegal alien. If the illegal alien's departure is voluntary, the passport is allowed to be returned to the alien. The U.S. government holds the passport of HB, an illegal alien who must leave the country. It cannot be validly concluded from the above information that A. HB's departure is not voluntary unless the passport is allowed to be returned to HBB. HB's departure is not voluntary if HB's passport is allowed to be returned to HBC, if HB's passport is not returned to the issuing government upon HB's departure, then HB is not being removed. D. If HB is being removed, then HB's passport is to be returned to the issuing government. (20) Officers discovered that many of the farm's employees were not permitted to work in the United States, despite the owner of the farm claiming that all of her Central American, for example, Salvadoran and Honduran, workers were working legally. Officers discovered that all of the female employees were working legally in the United States and that none of the illegal workers were from Honduras after checking their documentation. A. Some of the women were illegal workers. B. All of the employees from Honduras were working legally. C. All of the Salvadoran employees were women. D. None of the employees from Honduras were female. U.S. Customs and Border Protection CBP BPA Practice Test. CBP is the country's largest uniformed law enforcement organization. It is the agency in charge of safeguarding the United States borders and, as a result, of controlling entry into the country. CBP is in charge of safeguarding the nation's 325 ports of entry and implementing hundreds of laws aimed at ensuring the safety of citizens and commerce. The immigration laws of the United States are among the laws that CBP is responsible for enforcing. CBP can interrogate, investigate, and detain arriving immigrants at U.S. ports of entry as part of its immigration enforcement duties. The U.S. Border Patrol is part of CBP. BP is in charge of monitoring the areas at and surrounding international land borders, while CBP is in charge of border enforcement at ports of entry. BP's principal objective is to identify and apprehend illegal aliens and alien smugglers at or near the land border. The BP is responsible for enforcing immigration laws in areas near ports of entry, and it has jurisdiction to investigate, arrest, and detain illegal immigrants within 99 miles of land boundaries. Maintaining traffic checkpoints along roads heading from border areas, executing city patrol and transportation checks, and anti-smuggling investigations are only a few of BP's primary enforcement duties.